In the long and often turbulent history of American politics, few stories capture the clash between loyalty, conscience, and legacy quite like that of Dick Cheney and his daughter, Liz Cheney. For decades, Dick Cheney was the embodiment of conservative power, a man who stood at the center of American decision-making during some of its darkest and most controversial moments. But in the twilight of his life, the former vice president and his daughter took a stand that would isolate them from their party and place them on the opposite side of a movement reshaping the Republican landscape. This is the story of how a father's lessons on courage shaped a daughter's political destiny, and how both risked everything to defend what they believed was right for their country. A lonely anniversary. On January 6, 2022, 1 year after the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol, Liz Cheney, then the lone Republican member of the House present for the anniversary, walked onto the House floor beside her father. The image was striking. The 84-year-old former vice president, frail but resolute, and his daughter, once a rising star in the GOP, now ostracized for defying Donald Trump. Democratic Speaker Nancy Pelosi greeted them warmly. Around the chamber, the seats on the Republican side were empty. The Cheneys were alone. Looking around the room, Dick Cheney turned to his daughter and said quietly, "It's one thing to hear about what's happening in our party, but to see it like this, in such stark terms." For him, it was a moment of disbelief, a visual reminder of how much the Republican Party had changed since the days when he served as one of its most influential leaders. When reporters later asked him about the party's collapse into Trump's orbit, he said simply, "It's not leadership that resembles any of the folks that I knew when I was here for 10 years. A daughter's courage. For Liz Cheney, that moment reflected not only the party's transformation, but also her own journey. In her 2023 memoir, she wrote about how her father's teachings gave her the courage to take a stand, even when that stand cost her everything. "I want people to know that my father raised me to have the courage of my convictions," she told CNN. That courage was tested after the January 6th insurrection, when she voted to impeach Donald Trump. It was a decision that made her a pariah in the GOP. She lost her leadership role, then her congressional seat in Wyoming, a seat her father had once held. But neither of them backed down. Dick Cheney, long vilified by Democrats for his role in the Iraq War and the War on Terror, shocked the political world when he appeared in a campaign ad for his daughter in 2022, calling Trump a coward and the greatest threat to our Republican history. "I want people to remember that my father chose country over party," Liz said. A legacy of conviction. For much of his life, Dick Cheney was known for his hardline conservatism and his unapologetic defense of U.S. power. Critics called him Darth Vader. Supporters saw him as a patriot who made difficult decisions to protect the nation after 9/11, but to his daughter, he was more than that. He was a man of principle, even if those principles often made him unpopular. When she accepted the John F. Kennedy Profile in Courage Award in 2022, Liz shared a story about how her father first entered public service. As a young man, Dick Cheney had planned to become a professor. But after hearing President John F. Kennedy's call to serve in 1963, he was inspired to move to Washington. Please subscribe for more videos and stories.